At this point, every information portal is saturated with mindfulness content. But this show is a unique, unusual, curious take on mindfulness. Some of what you hear will be completely new to you. Let's dive in and take a look at the nature of the aware mind. I invite you to deepen your awareness so that you may be liberated and inspired.
We are here with Sarah Vallely, mindfulness teacher, coach, and author. Sarah has been teaching meditation and mindfulness for the past 2 decades, training and certifying others to teach mindfulness. Sarah is the author of 4 books. Her latest book is titled Tame, Soothe, Dwell, the 55 Teachings of TSD Mindfulness. On today's episode, we discuss the 4 areas in which worthiness appears in our life. The 4 areas are boundary setting, time management, beliefs about success and failure, and our emotional experiences. I'm Jacob DeRosset. I'm here with Sarah Vallely. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jacob. Thank you so much. We are talking about worthiness today, and worthiness is really difficult to define, but I'll do my best here. One of the reasons it's difficult to define is because worthiness is associated with different things for different people, right? Sometimes people associate worthiness with success, how successful they are. Some people associate worthiness with obedience to God. Worthiness is used a lot in the Christian religion. Some people associate worthiness with deserving of respect. I think a good definition of worthiness are not those, but worthiness is a deservingness of love and belonging. Very simple. And also joy and peace. You could think about it that way. Some people struggle with this idea of worthiness. Do you have any idea why maybe somebody would struggle with that? Do you struggle with the idea at all?
I don't think so. And I think when I do, I'm unaware that I'm struggling with that. That language in particular is not really on my radar of what I'm paying attention to. But yeah, I think I struggle with that. And I think it's like that stuff is really deep for a lot of people. I know it is for me. I think that if people are struggling with it, they probably wouldn't be able to identify exactly why that is.
I think also sometimes people might struggle with the idea of worthiness for the same reasons they might struggle with self-compassion. Like, who has time for worthiness? Worthiness is just going to make me weaker and not as ambitious. You know, these same things that people say about self-compassion. Totally not true. The research actually shows that that's not true, but I think that comes up for some people. Worthiness is such an important concept to address if you've had past trauma, because the cycle is you have trauma, you have shame. And what I mean by shame is you turn on yourself. You think that it's your fault. It makes you lesser of a person, which translates to all these different areas of your life. So you're dealing with these shame cycles. I'm not good enough. I need to make up for lack, things like that. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to get our worthiness back. Our worthiness was stolen from us because of our trauma. And we are really just grasping and trying to feel worthy. And it can be just such a lifelong struggle. And self-compassion practice is an amazing way to address that. Even having a sitting mindfulness practice, just sitting and noticing your experience, showing up for yourself in that moment, allowing any emotions to come through that need to come through, validating yourself, things of that nature can be really healing for your worthiness. Because if you're going to sit down and meditate for half an hour and you really make yourself do that, it makes you feel worthy. It's like, I'm worthy of taking a half hour out of my day and doing this for myself and creating this space and time for me to heal. So worthiness is so caught up in this idea of success, and worthiness and success are 2 completely separate things. We really need to untangle those, unwind those, see those as different. Success can be defined as having a job that you get paid a certain amount of money. Success could be that your business is doing well. Those are examples of success. Worthiness has nothing to do with that. Worthiness is simply, like I said before, a deservingness, feeling deserving of love and belonging. It has nothing to do with how successful your business is or how much money you're making. And then another myth about worthiness that I'd like to break is the idea that worthiness is associated with self-esteem. They are not the same thing. And if they are tangled up in some people's minds, that's another thing to untangle and unwind. This idea of associating worthiness with self-esteem. Self-esteem is about confidence. It's about, feeling confident because of XYZ. I feel confident because I have the house that I want. I feel confident because I'm good at this sport, something along those lines. You can feel unconfident. You can have bouts of feeling unconfident and still feel worthy. We don't have to feel confident to be worthy. Again, worthy is simply feeling deserving of loving and belonging. And if we feel unconfident about maybe a business venture that we're going on, we feel unconfident about something that's going on in our family, we feel unconfident about our ability to focus, whatever it is that we feel unconfident about, we can also take a moment and know that and feel that deservingness of love and belonging despite a lack of confidence.
I have a quick question. So I don't identify with the idea of not feeling worthy, but I do identify with feeling not confident sometimes, for sure, like pretty often. So is there anything that you would say to someone, like a question they could ask themselves in a particular area to where they can test their worthiness? Okay, so let's say I feel like I feel worthy all the time. Like, I don't think I have an issue with that. Do you have a question that you'd have me ask myself as like a testing question to see like what my worth is?
I have this tool. It's a test actually to see how much you embrace your worthiness. Not only will it let you know how much you embrace your worthiness, but it actually will divide your worthiness into 4 subcategories and let you know which categories of worthiness you feel you've mastered more than others. And I will say that these categories are some of the most prominent ways that our worthiness or lack of worthiness shows up in our lives. So the first category, setting boundaries with people. So setting boundaries with people who don't respect you, setting boundaries with people who don't see you. Looking at our schedule is a great way to see how our worthiness is showing up in our lives. If we have a schedule that's overpacked, we are overcommitted in so many different areas of our life, that is an indicator that there are some issues with worthiness, right? You're maybe saying yes to people when maybe it would be better to say no. You are maybe working harder and more time than maybe you need to, but you're doing it because you feel like you need to make up for a lack of something.
So I'm trying to buy a house. So I'm definitely overpacked and overstressed, but ultimately because I'm trying to save up enough money to have a down payment for a house. So that would not be worthiness because I can literally point to directly what it is, right? So if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh no, I have like a highly specific goal that I'm taking a obvious too much work for that, then that would not be worthiness issue, right? So it's not like all people that are just very busy. Does this make any sense?
I know it's a sensitive subject, but I would say I would not completely agree with that. If we're really stepping into our worthiness, we will create time and space to have me time, to really show up for yourself, to allow yourself to have your emotions come through in a natural way and create space for the emotions, even if they're difficult. Create time to just be in the silence, whether that's a meditation practice or a nice walk in nature. We will create the time to do those things that bring us joy.
I think that it all comes down to the reason why. Do I need to buy a house? My reason is I'm tired of giving away all my money to rent, so.
And I hear what you're saying about, but what is the reason for the filled schedule? And you're right. There can be reasons that are much more unhealthy than some other reasons, but if the reason is I don't feel like I'm enough if I don't do all this extra work, then that's definitely a red flag. Yeah. So another category is beliefs about success and failure. So we can really see where our worthiness is if we have these beliefs that we're not worthy unless we're successful. That is definitely an issue with worthiness. Even if you are super successful, you might be the super, super successful person, and you feel that your worthiness is tied to that success, is still a lack of worthiness. And the last category is your emotional processing, your emotional experience, the way that you show up for yourself when you are experiencing a difficult emotion shows so much about your worthiness. Are you telling yourself, I don't have time to feel this emotion. I will appear weak if I express this emotion. That's lack of worthiness. If you can, in that moment, create space for yourself to feel that uncomfortable feeling of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, and give yourself compassion for that experience is healing, and it also takes worthiness to really create that time and space for you to do that. Like I said, we do have this test, and Jacob's going to take this test and we're going to find out what his scores are. And I have my scores here too. And the idea of putting a score on your worthiness, the ridiculousness of putting a score on your worthiness is not lost on me of how crazy that is. But it's just kind of fun to kind of check in with yourself, see where you're at with this, and see which categories you are lacking more than others. And also the nice thing about having the score is then take it again in a year or take it again in 6 months and see how things have shifted. It can be valuable to go through this process, and this test will be linked in the show notes. So you can, right now, you can pause the podcast and download the test and do the test with us. If the 4 categories are boundaries with people, time management, beliefs about success and failure, and emotional experience, meaning what do we do when we have a difficult emotion? What is your prediction as to what might be higher and what might be lower?
So higher means better at or more comfortable with, and lower. Okay. Beliefs about success and failure will be high. Emotional experiences, I'm not super sure what that means exactly, so that I'll put that next to that one. Time management will be third lowest, and boundary setting is my worst.
Before I took this, my prediction was that my success and failure was going to be low, and my boundary setting was going to be low, and that my schedule and my emotional processing was going to be high. We'll go ahead and begin. Here's the first one. I periodically assess the boundaries I have set with people in my life.
Yeah, I do that. Yes.
For me, this is something that I did not do. And I feel like just in the last 3 or 4 years, I've really started doing this more.
Yeah, I've started labeling it as boundary setting now. I used to just think that I was going to have a difficult conversation with somebody, or I would, something like that. But now I know, oh no, I'm establishing a boundary with someone.
Yeah, you're more mindful of it and aware of the whole process.
Yeah, it wasn't on my radar of a thing that I did, but now it is. So now I understand it. It's always a bummer when you're in a back and forth with someone and they've kind of ran off with some boundaries. They've kind of like jumped over a couple fences.
That's why this says to reassess.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I do it not because I want to, because I have to. Yeah.
All right. Next one. I do not need to be above average.
I mean, I think maybe I'm intellectually deeply believing it. I struggle with that, if that's what that means, that, I have to just let it go and be like, it's cool that I'm struggling with this thing right now. That's been a recent thing with me.
I mean, this is such a huge part of our American culture. We've been brought up with this, and even in schools, not just our parents, in schools and television, brought up with this idea that we need to be above average. And it's such a weird concept if you think about it. Like, we all need to be better than half of the other people. It's such a weird idea.
I just try to actually just hit average today. Like nowadays, like I try to just do like a very consistent job, but I don't compare myself to anybody else. So I guess I'm not comparing to an average whatsoever. I just think of like the goals that I have that I want for me, but I don't view it as being comparative. So maybe that is a little different.
Yeah, I think that you are really good at this. And then, so let's take our podcast, for example. Me, I'm like obsessed with making sure that our podcast is above average. Like, I have a real problem with this. Like, I've actually done research and found out how many downloads do you need to get per week to be above average. Like this, like you don't go and do that.
No, it's like when I play volleyball, I just don't want to make mistakes. Like, I just want the passes that I make to be good. I want the hits that I make to be good. And I don't want to hit things out of bounds. I don't want to hit things into the net. I don't want penalties to be called on me. So my whole life is just don't make mistakes, basically, more so. So that, I don't know, that would be a little bit different wordage. So then when I do make mistakes or I am going below average, that's when I struggle. But no, I strive to be average, like right
You're
across the
shooting
board.
for the middle. Yeah.
Right in the middle. Yeah, always. Yeah.
And that's very Buddhist.
I think so.
Jacob, we're going to take a 32-second break. You are invited to participate in an online mindfulness retreat on January 21st. This is a retreat that I will be leading, and the topic is building worthiness and understanding our codependence. Enjoy 3 instructional sessions and 2 guided meditations. Go to the link in our show notes for more information. The early bird rate for this retreat is $47. And we're back. Next one. I tend to speak up for myself even when it is uncomfortable for others.
No. Yeah, well, I mean, intellectually, I definitely should. I understand that. I agree with it, but I don't do that.
It is okay to feel helpless and powerless sometimes.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's an example of one of the ones about emotions. Like, you are okay with feeling that uncomfortable emotion of feeling helpless and powerless. I do not make time for people who are too self-absorbed to hear and see me.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that one. That's a little bit of a tough one because I have finite amount of energy and time. And I understand logically why they might be self-absorbed. I don't blame them. A bear's gonna bear kind of thing. But I don't make a lot of time for them.
Do you believe that you are enough?
Oh yeah. That seems like a very maybe a egotistical answer, but it's like more of feel very comfortable on a deep level that I have all the tools that I need. I feel very lucky, I guess I should say.
There's a lot of times I don't think that I'm enough. And that is definitely a work in progress. And I don't know if that's more associated with females. It's this idea of I need to do more. I need to be more successful in my business. I need to be a better mother.
I'm the kind of person that I very much struggle with school. Like I just kind of got by with charisma and nothing else. So as an adult, I have become way more aware of my deficiencies, learning disabilities and stuff, but I really struggle with school. And so as an adult, I see it as a deficiency that I have for whatever reason, but I don't think that I don't have tools. I've made money and I feel very comfortable with my life. So I feel like I'm enough because of that. And also when I play volleyball, I don't feel like enough because I'm short. So it'd be nice to be taller. But then when I do other sports, it's like I have advantages. I feel like I have a deficiency here, but that is not equated with my worth, if that makes sense.
Yes. And that is the exact goal, if we can say goal, that we want to achieve. I mean, that's so much what I'm helping my clients with, is to not associate those. I validate myself for feeling rejected, misunderstood, unheard, hurt, or helpless.
Intellectually, yes. Deep level, yes, but I struggle with this as well. Mm-hmm. So I'll just be in a thought loop about a thing and not know that I am not validating myself. You know what I mean? I'm not stepping far enough back is the way I would describe it.
An example here would be something happened and you felt hurt. Maybe your feelings were hurt. And instead of questioning yourself and seeing where maybe things were your fault, instead of doing that, you stop and you say, you know what? It's understandable. I feel hurt. What happened to me that was hurtful?
Yeah, I don't do that. No, yeah. I jump right to fixing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I struggle. Yeah. With that.
Most people don't do that, but it's a very important step in the self-compassion practice. My definition of success is different from Western culture's definition.
I heard this on a podcast recently, just in passing, but it made a lot of sense to me. And it was talking about to strive for being content. I think I struggled with that in college and right after college. Why are my friends buying houses and I can't, and stuff like that. And I really struggle with that. But now I kind of get that, it's been a few years and, a lot of my friends are reaching out to me because they struggle with being content.
This whole idea of success is definitely one of my struggles. This fear of failure goes along with that. And one of my mantras is, it doesn't matter if I succeed or fail. What matters is that I love myself either way. There's this dichotomy, right? Success, failure, this dichotomy. And so many of us are just stuck in it. We can use our mindfulness practice and our awareness to pull ourselves out of that dichotomy and not identify with it, we can be non-binary in this in this scenario.
That's interesting. Yeah, my family, they're very much like, do we have food and shelter? Yes, then we're good. And just say, okay, I just need my basic needs met, and then enjoying, my family and my friends and my day.
I think one of my struggles is I come from a family of very successful people.
Oh, yeah, that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like my brother and sister are very successful, not only career wise, but relationship wise.
Oh, yeah.
My mom was an incredibly successful in her career. My grandparents, my grandmother is like this hotshot businesswoman. Like there's so much success in my family. And I think that's one of the reasons that I struggle with it. And it's not like anybody's put any pressure on me in a certain way. But I've always been kind of like the artist type in the family.
Yeah, no, I relate to that as well.
So here's another one. I take time to sit and accomplish nothing.
No, I intellectually agree with that, and I don't do it. This is where I'm headed towards. Oh, that sounds delicious to sit. But boy, I don't understand it.
Yeah, this is something that I definitely have struggled with in the past. I got in a snowboarding accident almost 2 years ago now, and I couldn't work for 5 months. I had vision problems. All I could do was just sit on my couch for months and listen to audiobooks. And that experience going through that has helped me so much to just be okay with sitting and doing nothing. So I did that for like 5 months. So now if I just spend like a half hour or something just sitting at my dining room table, kind of just like zoning out, like it's no big deal. I've gotten better. All right, next one here. I am lesser than because of my trauma.
Because I haven't really addressed a lot of my trauma. I do worry that I have issues that I don't see, and I don't actually know the answer to that. So I don't know, but I would assume that I definitely struggle in certain ways because of that.
This is a big one. This is just something that on a deep level, those of us who had trauma, we generally think we're lesser than because of our trauma. We need to be fixed because we have trauma. We aren't capable of having as good jobs because of our trauma, or capable of having as good relationships because of our trauma. So this is a really big one, but something that truly, truly can be addressed with a self-compassion practice. I need to work harder to make up for fill in the blank, to make up for the fact that I was a stay-at-home mom for several years. I need to work harder to make up for the fact that I don't make as much money as other people, or I need to work harder to make up for the fact that I am dyslexic, or whatever it is.
I intellectually disagree, but I do that.
If I take more time for self-care, I am not contributing enough.
I'm pretty good about doing self-care. I'm not good at doing nothing. I'm pretty selfish with my care.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about your self-care routine a lot. You seem really good at that.
Pretty good at it. Yeah. The work one above it gets in the way.
Mm-hmm. I feel responsible when I have been betrayed.
Oh, yeah.
There's some of us who, when we are betrayed, our first reaction is to turn on ourselves and blame ourselves. And that's an indication of some issues with worthiness. So something to be mindful of. I tend to compare my success to my siblings or coworkers. I just talked about that.
I do that, funny enough, on like Instagram.
Right. Social media for sure.
And YouTube. Yeah. On platforms that I'm on where other people are just doing a better job. Now, I understand logically, like, but I have went through periods where it's like, man, these people have they know something I don't know. Mm-hmm. They have an eyeball, or they have a better, you know what I mean? Like something's going on here. And it's like, it's definitely feels out of reach for me. Now, logically, I understand that it's an exploration and I can improve it. So it's not just like, okay, but it is like one of those things that how much energy and time can I invest? I'm a bit jealous of their ability to have more energy. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's definitely a thing I have playing in my mind for sure.
So many of us do that. And it's so good to be mindful of that process. I know I definitely do. I tend to keep a busy schedule to prevent depression. This is definitely something I've done in the past.
Yeah, I definitely have done that, especially when I was a a waiter, I would pick up a lot of shifts and stuff like that because I felt a bit depressed during that time, I remember. But yeah, not as an adult.
I remember I used to have anxiety looking at the future week and seeing that I wasn't that busy and like, oh no, I'm going to sit at home and I'm going to start to get depressed. And yeah, that's gotten a lot better though. Is it better to be strong and avoid certain emotions?
I do that, but not that much anymore. I wish that was a scale I could do 1 to 5 there. I don't think that you should avoid emotions at all. Whatever you resist persists. I definitely believe that intellectually, and I've gotten a lot better about that.
I struggle with work-life balance.
Yes. Again, logically, I understand I shouldn't, but I really struggle with it. I think too, for people like entrepreneurs, it's obviously a lot worse, but then also if you really enjoy what you do, it is very hard. There's a lot of times where I'm on my phone, I look up, my poor wife is just looking at me and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, but yeah, I really, really struggle with that.
I work with clients on this struggle quite a bit, and it almost always comes down to worthiness. It could be issues of perfectionism, and we are perfectionists because we don't feel worthy. We don't feel like we're going to be accepted and loved if we don't get it all perfect. And then also having survivor mentality. I'm not going to make it if I don't work harder. And that's also comes down to worthiness.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I always worry that people will think that I don't care, or I'm being disrespectful with people's time or their attention. And I really worry about that. I just want people to not have to worry about me, I think, is a big thing. That I want people to know, oh yeah, he's good. He's got his stuff under control. Don't worry about that guy. And when I don't do that, it's like, dang, people are like, I think that I would worry that people felt like they couldn't rely on me in a certain way.
In this world, it's good to have those attributes. But if we are really working on our worthiness and really healing from all of that, we move more towards a place that people are going to accept us, even if we make mistakes. Like my worth is my humanness, my showing up and being who I am. I tend to prioritize having compassion for others over setting boundaries.
Oh yeah, I don't like it, but that's what I do.
Me too. That's one of mine. I don't have time to pursue my interests and recreational activities.
I don't think it's that I don't have time. I don't have bandwidth and attention. I have like a couple things that I want to do that I'm not getting to. So I definitely am on that spectrum.
It might show up and look like I don't have enough bandwidth, but if you really got down to the nitty gritty, there's probably something in there about boundaries or doing more to make up for lack of something. There's 24 possible points and you received 10 out of 24. I got 12 out of 24. So it's close. Like if you've mastered around half of these, like you're doing great. And then it just points out some of the things that you can work toward. Your highest scores were in processing emotions and success and failure, which was exactly what you predicted. You got a 3 out of 6. So you got half of them for both of those categories. And then you got 2 out of 6 for both boundaries and schedule. So you were right on with paying attention more toward the boundaries that you set with people on your schedule. I predicted that I would have my lowest scores in success and failure and boundaries, and my highest scores in time management and processing my emotions. And I was actually surprised. My success and failure, I only got 1 out of 6. So I was really low. My boundaries, I actually got 4 out of 6. It was one of my higher scores. And so I think what happened there is I really have worked so much with my boundaries the last few years, but I think I'm still in this like headspace of like, oh, I'm not good at boundaries. That was really good for me to realize like, oh, I actually have gotten boundaries. My thinking just hasn't caught up.
Yeah.
My schedule was pretty high, 4 out of 6. Emotional processing was 3 out of 6.
The Aware Mind podcast is a TSD mindfulness production. Please visit our website at tsdmind.org. That is T as in tame, S as in soothe, and D as in dwell. Mind as in mindfulness.org. Check out our blog post for this episode with links to supplemental information such as worksheets you can use to put into practice the mindfulness skills shared in this episode. Also, please sign up for our newsletter and receive mindfulness tips. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at aware_mind_podcast. Thank you.